The story begins with a squad of adventurers getting wiped out by a massive monster. Our hero, Licht, watches the scene like a confused NPC, while the monster finishes off all his comrades with its claws. He knows that monster is too strong, and he can't fight it while being wounded and quickly casts a resurrection spell on his dead teammates. Slowly, the dead group starts moving and one of the members stands up and rushes straight toward the monster, and with a single swing of his sword, he cuts off the monster's head. After that, they return to the guild and the girl in the team is very happy, because this time they receive a big reward. One of the partners says it's because the monster was on the bounty list. After that, the team decides to divide the bounty equally, and the girl gives everyone their share. She gives a share to Licht, who brought them back to life. One of the partners says that ever since Licht joined, their missions have become quicker and more successful. Jose agrees and says Licht's resurrection skill lets them come back again and again, but dying still feels bad. Shizuku says that if Alan hadn't invited Licht to the team, things would have turned out very differently. She guesses Alan brought him in because he knew about Licht's powers. But Alan says he just wanted more people on the team, and it was pure luck that Licht asked to join. Licht explains that he had always been alone because he never showed anyone his abilities. The girl wonders why he hid such an amazing skill and says even the kingdom would want someone like him. Licht says he was afraid his power could be used by bad people, or could lead him into danger, but now they treat him with kindness, and that's why he finally feels safe to show his powers. Jose is grateful for his words and says that because of Licht, they feel unstoppable now. She admits she once thought he was useless, but now she sees how important he is. She says their dream of becoming S-rank adventurers is now possible, and Alan agrees with her and puts a hand on Licht's shoulder. He says he expects great things from him, and Licht promises that he will never let them down. After that, they take on many missions and get good rewards. They work together, which helped them grow, and they discovered new abilities. And soon they become strong enough to defeat enemies without any need for Licht's revival skill. After one more successful battle, the team heads to the tavern to relax. Jose says the last fight felt easy and Shizuku agrees with him, and says the enemies are just too weak now because they've become S-rank adventurers. Just then, Alan pulls out another task from his pocket and explains that they need to explore a small ruin. He tells them that it's a simple job with a decent reward. They instantly get up to head to the shrine, and after traveling for some time, the group reaches the spot. They see a deep cave there, and Licht notices the temple looks lifeless and very narrow. Suddenly, Alan says the exploration is over and they are going back. This confuses everyone, but Alan insists everything is fine and they should return. Licht doesn't argue but walks behind the group and feels something strange. As they walk, Alan suddenly apologizes to Licht, and he doesn't understand at first, but when he turns around, he sees they are surrounded by a group of guards. Then he notices an elder who appears to be their leader and asks him what's going on. The monk tells him to read the document that says the kingdom has issued an execution order for him. Hearing this, Licht's soul briefly leaves the chat and he tries to escape, but the guards grab him and tell him to stop resisting. He asks if he has done something wrong and explains that he always followed the rules and paid his taxes as an adventurer. Hearing this, the elder says the issue is Licht's abilities. Licht is confused about how they even knew, since he only told his group. The man says Licht's skill is too dangerous, and that while it has saved many lives, it could also be used to revive demons. Licht says that's nonsense and tells him that he never had any intention to misuse his powers. He tells them to ask his teammates and begs Alan to speak up and tell the truth. But Alan decides to play villain and walks past him silently. Then he apologizes to Licht and says he can't go against the kingdom's orders and tells Licht to just accept it for the team's sake, which confuses Licht. Alan explains they needed his power to survive at the start, but now that they've stopped dying during missions, they don't need him anymore. He says Licht still gets a share of rewards, and that causes dissatisfaction in the team. Alan finishes by saying that Licht should accept his execution, and maybe the kingdom will remember him as a former hero. Licht can't believe what he's hearing. Shizuku says she understands how he feels, but it won't change anything, and tells him not to hold a grudge, even though it hurts. After that, the elder rewards Alan for handing Licht over to the kingdom, and takes Licht away to a place he doesn't know. They lead him to a cliff, and the executioner asks if Licht has any last words. Licht asks where they are, and the executioner says this is the place of sentencing as ordered by the king. He says after the blow, he'll push Licht off the cliff, and that will give him a quick and painless end. Licht curses them, but the executioner tells him to be grateful and warns that he can make the death slower and more painful if he keeps talking. The executioner says that no one expected an S-rank adventurer to die like this. Then he says he has an idea and offers Licht a bet that he won't die, but Licht tells him to just finish him. Hearing this, the executioner says goodbye and delivers the final blow. The sharp blade cuts through Licht's body, and pain spreads through him, but still Licht stays conscious. He knows these are his last moments, and as he falls from the cliff, he sees the beautiful forest below and feels shocked that he's dying in such a peaceful place. Licht falls to the ground and stares up at the executioner who just struck him. The man makes sure Licht shows no signs of life and walks away, ending his long day of work. Licht remains still on the grass and thinks that no one stays behind to check if he is truly dead, which means they made a mistake in understanding his rebirth skill. He regains consciousness and realizes all of his injuries are completely gone. He looks at his hands and his mind glitches with confusion when he notes that he's still alive and his body feels normal with no pain or wounds. He remembers clearly how the executioner had stabbed him through the chest, and he searches for any trace of an injury but finds nothing. He finds it similar to his resurrection skill and wonders who could have used this skill on him. That's when he realizes that he must have used the resurrection skill on himself, and the ability activated even after death. He thinks about his former team and realizes that they never knew about this ability, but now he suspects that one of them told the kingdom about it. He feels deeply betrayed because he had trusted them completely. He knows that he can never return to the kingdom of Rasaga, so he decides to disappear before nightfall. He enters the forest with his heart full of anger and a growing desire for revenge against those who betrayed him. Licht understands that his strange skill is the reason his allies betrayed him, and the kingdom used that secret as a reason to execute him. However, that same power saved him from death, and even after several days, he still remembers the feeling of waking up again. After losing everything, he had faced a level of despair he had never imagined. Now he is walking alone on an unknown path, and he reaches a rocky shore. He decides to sail away from the kingdom to a safe place because he knows that the king has no idea he's still alive. He thinks that both humans and demons live in this world, but demons control nearly 70% of it, while humans hold the rest. He remembers that he has heard a rumor about a hidden cave that could offer him shelter. He doesn't know if it's real, but he has no better options, so he begins searching for it. After several days, he doesn't find any trace of it, so he starts to believe that the cave might only be a myth. Licht sits by the sea and starts throwing stones into the crashing waves because he doesn't know what else to do. Just then he hears a strange metallic sound and walks towards it to investigate. As he looks down, he spots a set of metal doors hidden beneath the water. He wonders why such a door would be in a place like this, and to find answers, he jumps into the water and swims toward it. As he gets closer, he starts to believe this might be the cave from the rumors. When the door slowly opens, Licht becomes sure that this is the place he had been searching for. Licht steps carefully into the dark corridor, and as he moves deeper inside, he notices there isn't a single monster, so he starts to think the dungeon is inactive. He doesn't know if he has reached the deepest part of the cave, but he decides to resurrect the dead creature sleeping inside the dungeon. He knows that he needs to form an alliance with the dead if he wants to live here. As he moves forward, he guesses that the cave is very old, which means strong monsters might have once lived here. He believes that his resurrection skill can bring back the dead, even if the body has decomposed or not. Licht knows that he is doing the thing the kingdom feared and executed him for, but our bro has already entered his unbothered era. He activates his resurrection skill, and a loud rumble shakes the cave. A strange feeling hits him, and he feels like his soul is being pulled out stronger than ever before. Just then, he sees a shadow, and he assumes that the resurrection worked and the monster is waking up. Our lonely deluxe guy sees 5 beautiful girls in front of him, and he doesn't understand how they could be monsters. One girl is happy and can't believe someone actually brought them back to life. Another girl smiles and tells their leader that the resurrection was a success. She's also surprised their bodies look perfect again, and there are no signs of damage. A small girl runs to her sister with joy, and the older sister is happy to see her. Licht watches silently, and one of the girls turns to her teammate and suggests that this guy might be the one who brought them back. Hearing this, their leader tells the others to return to their guard posts and make sure no one else gets in. Then she turns to Licht and asks if he really resurrected them, and Licht answers yes. The girl asks how he did it, since they died over 100 years ago and their bodies were already gone. Licht is shocked to hear that while she explains that not even necromancers can revive people without a body. Licht begins to shake as he notices how strange and powerful this girl is. He admits that he doesn't know exactly how the skill works, and he was surprised too. She checks to see if he's lying, but then suddenly laughs and says he's an interesting guy. She suggests that he really might be able to bring back the dead and offers him to join them. She says he looks in trouble, and even though she doesn't know his full story, she's willing to help because he brought them back. Licht seizes the chance faster than a bullet train and agrees to become a part of the Demon Lord's army. He thinks that things don't go the way he planned, and he has nowhere else to go, so he's thankful for this opportunity. The girl then realizes they haven't introduced themselves and tells them her name is Arya, and he can worship her as the legendary Demon Lord. After that, Licht introduces himself and asks who the other 4 girls are. Arya explains that the girls with her are her loyal followers, and they are very thankful to Licht for bringing them back. Licht doesn't get a chance to talk to the others and assumes they are her comrades and they must be strong and capable. Just then, Arya says their main goal is to rebuild Dystopia and notes that even after 100 years the layout of this place hasn't changed much. Hearing this, Licht guesses that Dystopia is a dungeon and Arya confirms it and adds that it's also called the Executioner of Heroes. She believes they can still use it because it was built so tough and hasn't changed much. Licht asks how he can help and tells Arya that his combat skills are just average. Arya tells him not to be silly and says she wouldn't just throw him into battle. She adds that she respects his strength but has another role in mind for him. She says she won't limit him to a specific area of the dungeon. Licht guesses the cave is huge and the 4 girls are trying to guard it. He thinks that only 4 of them are not enough to guard such a large area and asks Arya if she has noticed anything strange about her followers. Arya says no, but remembers that the girls always looked tired and didn't get any sleep before they died. Hearing this, Licht thinks that the area is so large and the girls have no time to rest. He suggests Arya look at things from a different angle and Arya agrees and says that they should talk with the others. She leaves this task to Licht and he is surprised by how casually she gave the job to a triple error like him. After that, Licht heads to the area nearest the deepest part of the dungeon and politely apologizes for the intrusion. A girl turns around and tells him that she is cleaning up the library and her name is Faris from the Hall of Melancholy. Licht notices that she's not human and since she guards the deepest part of the dungeon, it means she must be very powerful. Faris curiously asks why he is here, and Licht says that he wants to help lighten their workload and tells her that Arya gave him permission. Hearing this, Faris bows and calls him a savior and says that she's willing to work with him. Licht then asks how many zones she manages and Faris tells him that she watches over 5 zones. Licht is shocked and thinks that each zone usually has a strong boss monster and realizes that Faris and the others are high-level demons. He thinks that Faris doesn't look like an underling from her appearance and wonders why she handles so much alone. He realizes that there is a greater lack of manpower in this dungeon than he thought. Faris tells him that it becomes stressful when enemies come and there's more pressure because this area is the closest to Arya. She explains Iris and Tis guard their area together, but she does everything alone. She admits there's nothing she can do to reduce her own burden. Licht thinks this won't be fixed in a day, and he suggests using traps to defend the zones, but he isn't sure if Arya would approve. Faris thinks it should be fine since Arya is in a good mood and might listen to Licht now that he brought them back. Licht sees Faris's passion and starts to believe he can help bring real change. Meanwhile, Iris and Tis are resting in the primordial forest area. They notice Licht and recognize him as the one who brought them back. Tis apologizes for not preparing a reward, but Licht tells them not to worry. They already know his name, to which he asks how they learned it, and Tis says she overheard him talking with Arya, but she didn't mean to eavesdrop. Just then, Iris says Licht came to help them with their work, and Licht says he wants to find a way to ease their burden. Hearing this, Iris asks her sister what to do and Tis suggests that they should listen to what he has to say because he's trying to help. Our smart sauce boy asks if both of them are in charge of this area and suggests that they don't divide the work. Iris hugs her sister and says she doesn't want to be apart from her sister, and Tis explains that their powers work better when they're together, so splitting up isn't an option. Iris then asks if Licht can bring back their old servants, who were the puppets created by Arya, and help them in their work. Licht is surprised and says he can't bring back beings without souls. Tis apologizes for asking too much and Iris says it would be great if Arya could make more servants like before. Tis doubts Arya would do it again because it's time-consuming. Licht says he'll think about it and Tis asks him not to push himself too hard, while Iris says she'll trust him. Finally, Licht visits the last assistant, who didn't expect to meet him. Her name is Rose, and she lives in a bat cave. Licht notices that she's a vampire who sleeps during the day and realizes that she doesn't get much time to rest because her area is located near the entrance. Then he tells her he's trying to fix the issue of manpower shortage in Dystopia, but now sees it's a much bigger issue. Rose thanks him and says the others have it harder than she does. Then Licht asks how many zones she manages, and Rose tells him that she has 7 zones under her care. Licht sees that she's handling the most work and offers to help, but Rose says she's a vampire and her stamina is better than the others. She admits that if the work increases, it will become too much. Hearing this, our mind ninja guy thinks that they need to hire more workers, but he knows regular monsters won't be enough and suddenly thinks of a bold idea. Rose asks what he's thinking. Licht realizes they need to boost their forces so Dystopia can withstand attacks. He knows that recruiting will take time, so he thinks of someone who could help right away. He thinks about a familiar name known by all adventurers and decides to seek out the legendary necromancer. Meanwhile, Faris comes out of the dungeon and is surprised the world has changed so much. Just then, Licht notices a bridge that wasn't there before and Faris tells him that Rose might have built it for them. Licht is surprised that they gave her that job, but just then he sees a huge wolf and warns Faris to be careful. He thinks the beast might attack, but Faris says the wolf is friendly. She tells him that the wolf is tamed by Rasu and given to them for travel. Then she tells Licht to hop on and asks if he knows where they're going. Licht says he does, and it would be bad if he didn't. They head to the tomb of the legendary necromancer, which is situated in the hero's graveyard. Licht thinks that there should be light around it because the tomb is preserved for religious purposes. Faris says if this operation is successful, they'll have more free time, and she is glad that Arya gave them permission. Licht thinks he didn't expect she would let one of her people go. Faris isn't sure Arya will allow the necromancer to stay even if they revive him, but Licht says it'll be fine. Then Licht tells her that they'll probably have to fight the tomb guardians. Hearing this, Faris asks if Licht can keep resurrecting her if she dies, to which Licht says it's no problem. Meanwhile, the caretakers of the hero's grave learn that someone is coming. They don't expect visitors and feel unlucky that it happened during their shift. However, they get ready to face the intruders and one of them says they must be thieves who are after the grave's treasures. He calls it shameful and unforgivable to rob a hero's tomb and prepares to catch and punish the intruders. Meanwhile, Licht and Faris reach the graveyard and Faris tells the wolf to wait for their return. They reach the tomb and Licht senses the caretakers and warns Faris to be careful. She is surprised by his caution. Suddenly, one of the caretakers launches a pop attack and one shouts that whoever strikes first wins, but Licht dodges skillfully. One of the men targets Ferris, and she tries to block his weapon but gets kicked hard. The attack sends her flying, and she falls to the ground and their strength shocks Licht. Ferris is badly hurt and stops breathing. However, Licht quickly casts his resurrection spell and Ferris opens her eyes. Just then, one of the caretakers tries to interrupt the spell and attacks, but suddenly that caretaker clutches his stomach in pain. The other one looks at him with shock while the first caretaker collapses. The second caretaker asks why he would hurt his partner like that, and Licht says he finally understands what Arya meant. The caretaker tells him to stop with the nonsense and explain. In the meantime, Licht manages to fully revive Ferris, and she thanks him for saving her and says she wishes she had seen his powers sooner. She turns to face the shocked caretaker and steps back in fear. He looks at his fallen comrade and pleads with her to stop and spare him. Ferris only laughs and pulls out a knife that belongs to the caretaker and then brings it to her own neck. Seeing this, the man's brain starts glitching like an old DVD, and he doesn't understand what she's planning. Suddenly, Ferris slashes her own neck, and it also injures the man, and they both collapse. Licht doesn't fully understand her combat style, but he uses his resurrection spell again on Ferris, and she comes back to life. Licht then says to her that the caretakers might call for help, so they need to hurry. They begin searching for the necromancer's grave. After a while, they finally find the cemetery. They look at the tombstone and come to know that the necromancer's name is Dorothy. Licht decides to resurrect her quickly before backup shows up, and hopes she can join the Demon Lord's forces because they really need manpower. He casts the resurrection spell and a hand rises from the grave, which makes them surprised that Dorothy woke up so fast. Dorothy asks for help and Licht asks Ferris to assist him in taking her out from the tomb. Dorothy comes out and says they should have dug up the body first before casting the spell. Licht apologizes for being hasty, to which Dorothy accepts his apology and asks why they brought her back. Licht explains that their group needs another companion, and Dorothy agrees after sensing Ferris is not human. Then she asks how Licht was able to resurrect her even though he isn't a necromancer, and she doesn't feel any master-servant connection to him. Licht says she's right and explains he has a skill called resurrection that lets him revive anyone, but they don't become his slaves. He adds that he can also bring himself back. Dorothy gets shocked because she's never heard of such a power and says Licht's ability is similar to hers, but still completely new. Dorothy then asks if they only want her as a companion and promises to prove she's worth being revived. Licht is happy and suggests they leave before the gatekeepers show up. After that, they head to the dungeon and enter the deepest part of dystopia. Dorothy is amazed at the size of the dungeon and says that even if she summons spirits, they wouldn't cover the entire area. Hearing this, Licht asks if it's difficult, but Dorothy disagrees and says that summoning spirits is a no-brainer thing for her. She casts a spell with her cane and summons spirits to help in the dungeon and says they should arrive in 3 minutes. Licht is surprised that she did it so fast, to which Dorothy says she can control hundreds of spirits at once. Licht now understands why she's called a necromancer. Just then, Dorothy asks if she can take charge of one of the zones. Hearing this, Licht thinks that the areas with spirits are weaker than those protected by Rose and the others, but this setup will help them to defend and manage their areas more efficiently. Dorothy says she never thought that she would be working under the Demon Lord. Then she asks why a human like Licht is helping a demon. Licht didn't expect the question and explains that something bad happened in the human world and he has nowhere else to go. Dorothy accepts that and says she understands that things didn't go well for him in the human world. Dorothy then says she should thank the Demon Lord since she's new here. Hearing this, Licht tells her that Arya is asleep and they shouldn't disturb her and suggests she greet the other members. He points towards Ferris and says that she is one of the scariest people, and it shocks Dorothy, but she says she doesn't find her that scary. Licht warns her that if she tries to attack her, she'll stab herself in the neck. This scares both Licht and Dorothy, but Dorothy says now that Ferris and the others are her allies, so she trusts them. She asks Licht to promise that he'll resurrect her again if something happens. Licht promises he will, and Dorothy says she hopes he saves her before she actually kicks the bucket. Meanwhile, Alan's team is in town staying at a hotel. Alan is sitting in his room when Shizuku comes and asks Alan if he's found a replacement for Licht. Alan says no and explains that it's hard to find a healer who matches their level. Shizuku says there must be some candidates and tells him that they don't need to be resurrected and they just need someone to heal their wounds. But Alan tells her that they need healers who can survive in battle, to which Shizuku guesses that he means healers with better defense. Then she says that they are S-rank adventurers and many strong healers would want to join them. Alan explains that a higher rank doesn't improve physical ability, and an S-rank healer is still no stronger than a regular adventurer. Hearing this, Shizuku says Licht was helpful in battle, to which Alan says they shouldn't think about him anymore and adds that resurrection is just Licht's skill, and that's why his combat strength was also good. Alan then suggests they start by taking one person as bait, and Shizuku agrees with him and says they can do without all the healers. Alan hands her a bunch of requests and tells her to pick one. Just then, Shizuku finds a letter addressed to Alan and gives it to him, and Alan guesses that it's a mission request from a group that failed. Shizuku asks him to read the letter, and Alan comes to know that it's about a sudden surge of magic from a dungeon that has been dormant for years. Hearing this, Shizuku says it means monsters from the dungeon have awakened. Alan tells her that the dungeon is located on the human-demon border and they can easily reach there if they accept this quest. Shizuku says that she heard rumors that the Demon Lord lives there. However, coin addict Alan gets excited when he sees that the reward is 500,000 gold, and they decide they have no choice but to accept the quest. Back in the dungeon, Dorothy is in the library with Licht and helping him to go through books. Licht is surprised that nothing bad has happened since then, but Dorothy tells him people have started hearing about dystopia. Licht asks how Dorothy knew about that, and Dorothy explains that she left a spirit to patrol the area near the dungeon, and the spirit spotted humans nearby. Licht's brain lags when he realizes that she can use spirits like this, to which Dorothy says she didn't order the spirits to attack because she assumed the adventurers would soon attack them since they are aware of the dungeon's location. Licht offers to deal with the situation when the time comes and thanks her for the information. He tells Dorothy that Faris, Rose, and the others are grateful for her spirits. She says she is happy to help them, and reveals that she had once failed to find a purpose for necromancy, but now she is glad that she is working in the dungeon. Then she asks Licht what her role will be when adventurers invade. Licht assures her that Rose and the others will handle the invaders before they reach their area, so she doesn't need to worry. Suddenly, Arya enters the room looking for them, and Dorothy is glad to see her. Arya says that she already knows about her from the others, and she is looking forward to working with Dorothy. Licht then tells Arya that humans are preparing a raid on the dungeon, which surprises her. She says they'll fight back if that's what the humans want, and mentions that Rose and Iris are strong enough to defeat every single one of them. She tells them that Iris is strong only when she is with Tis, but Rose is as strong as an orc, and she can defeat anyone who gets in their way. Dorothy asks Licht if she should ask Rose to let some adventurers through, to which Licht says Rose would agree and asks why Dorothy would want that. Dorothy explains that she understands what it's like to die at the hands of a vampire, and she sympathizes with those who might die at Rose's hands. After that, Arya says that she will return to her old job because she doesn't care how many enemies remain. Licht asks if she's already leaving, and Arya points out that she's very busy and needs to hurry. Licht doesn't understand what Arya is thinking, but realizes she isn't as scary as Faris. Dorothy is amazed to see how casually Licht speaks to Arya, who is the great demon lord. Meanwhile, discount genius Alan and his group continue their journey into the dungeon, and Jose asks Alan if they are heading in the right direction. Alan confirms that they are in the right direction because he got information from the guild. Just then, Shizuku mentions that they're moving slowly and asks if their horses are slow. Jose asks Alan if he knows anything more about the dungeon and says they only know it has a huge magical presence, but that's not enough for a countermeasure. Alan tells Jose to calm down and says that it's already too late for a countermeasure. Shizuku agrees and says that she doesn't like to overthink. Hearing this, Jose tells them not to blame him if something happens. Then they discuss the reward and decide to split the reward equally, but they have a problem with sharing the same amount with the healer too. After a while, they reach the dungeon entrance, and Shizuku comments that the dungeon looks dangerous. Hearing this, Jose asks Alan if he brought the escape item, and Alan confirms and says that Licht is not with them, so he will use it when they are in trouble. Then he tells the healer to stay close to them. As they enter, Jose says that he can sense demons or spirits nearby, and Shizuku points out that what was detected in the dungeon might be undead, like Licht's. Alan realizes his team doesn't have the stamina to defeat the undead here, and that they need to finish the battle quickly. Meanwhile, Licht and Dorothy discuss how to deal with the invaders. Licht wipes the sweat from his forehead as they finish cleaning up one of the rooms, and Dorothy thanks Licht for his help. She explains that her spirits can attack and guard, but they can't handle troubles like this. Hearing this, Licht recalls how one of her spirits had spotted people nearby, and thinks that the dungeon's location has been discovered, and wonders why humans haven't tried to invade it yet, and if they decided that dystopia is not dangerous. Just then, Dorothy reveals that the adventurers have already entered the dungeon and are heading down the stairs. Licht is surprised to hear this and feels that many adventurers are about to enter. Meanwhile, Alan's group enters the hall, and Shizuku notes many ghosts walking around the hall and says there are too many spirits and that they can't be controlled by a single monster. Hearing this, Jose speculates that it might take 10 liches to control them. Alan is shocked to hear this and says if there were really 10 liches, they would have fought and slayed each other. Then he orders his team to stick together no matter what happens. Suddenly, Rose appears behind them and greets Alan, scaring every single cell in his body. Rose says she has been ordered to split up their group and bring them here, to which Alan asks who she is. Alan looks around and notes that Jose and Shizuku are already missing, which means he is alone here. Rose notices his nervousness and introduces herself. Alan realizes she is strong enough not to throw a sudden attack and asks if she owns the dungeon. Rose calmly says no and reveals that she is his rival. As soon as Alan hears this, he tries to attack her, but she effortlessly takes his sword and leaves him in shock. She compliments the blade and says that it's too good to be wasted on humans. Then she explains to Alan that his swing was too slow, which is why she managed to take it so easily. After that, she casually tosses the sword back to him. Alan regains his confidence once he catches it and asks who is really controlling the spirits. He insists it isn't Rose and demands to know where the person behind it is. Rose says she doesn't know exactly, but assumes it's Licht, and Alan asks how she knows Licht. Rose explains that she just guessed it, but Alan doesn't understand why she mentioned his name. Hearing this, Rose asks how he knows about Licht, but Alan is too busy thinking that Licht is supposed to be dead because the kingdom issued his execution orders. Alan comes out of his thoughts and decides it doesn't matter and accuses Rose of trying to make him hesitate with Licht's name. Hearing this, Rose says she understands how Licht feels, and then she tells Alan that he has already lost. Suddenly, a number of bats swoop down on him and start sucking his blood. Slowpoke Alan tries to defend himself but can't move while Rose watches calmly and says that if she asked Licht to resurrect him, it would create a perfect perpetual system, and she's definitely going to test that theory. Soon Alan gets buried under the loads of bats and Rose watches this sight with satisfaction. Meanwhile, Shizuku is walking alone through the dungeon and finds herself in a strange forest. She realizes something is off when she notices the bat, and then she realizes that Alan and Jose have disappeared. Just then, Iris spots Shizuku and informs Tis that a human has come to see them, and they should take her down. Hearing this, Tis agrees and says they have to do it because it's Aria's order. Queen of overconfident Shizuku is surprised to hear that and draws her sword, saying if they run, she'll forget about them. Iris is surprised by her warning, while Tis remains calm. Shizuku realizes her trick didn't work and points her sword at them. Seeing this, Iris uses her fairy control skill, and a bunch of fairies appear and start attacking. Shizuku is confused because she didn't think such cute fairies could be dangerous. She uses a whirlwind blade technique to fight them off and manages to cut down a few with her weapon. Just then, one fairy touches her and sinks into her body, which makes Shizuku drop her sword and her body freezes. Iris is happy that she completed the mission Aria gave her, and Tis is proud of her sister and praises her for handling it alone. The older sister then uses the same fairy control skill and sends more fairies into Shizuku's body, and the little fairies keep entering her motionless body. Iris wonders what they should do with the girl now, to which Tis says Aria didn't give any orders about that. Shizuku can't move and never expected them to attack together and tries to think of a way to escape. While Iris suggests they give her to Rose, and both of them agree to do it while Shizuku stares at them with shock. Meanwhile, Jose sees a bunch of ghosts nearby and tries to figure out where he is. Suddenly, Dorothy greets him and says that he is really a human. Seeing her, Jose comments that he has seen her somewhere and thinks that her face reminds him of someone from the past. Then he says he wants to ask her questions about the dungeon, but he knows that she won't answer. Dorothy says she can't tell him anything and adds that he won't suffer like his other two friends and asks him not to blame her. Hearing this, the delusional champion Jose draws his blades and stands there with confidence that he can beat her. Just then Dorothy sees Licht, and she asks him where he went, to which he replies that he was talking to Forrest. Jose is shocked to see Licht, and Licht is also surprised to see Jose and didn't expect to run into him so soon. Jose asks why Licht is here, and Licht responds by asking the same thing. Jose tells him to answer first and asks how Licht is still alive after the execution. Licht tells him that he somehow came back to life and then says that he wants to talk to Alan and asks about his whereabouts. Hearing this, Jose says he wants to know that too and wonders if this was Licht's plan to split them. Licht says that it was his idea and asks Jose if he knew about the execution order. Jose answers yes, and Licht asks what Jose thought about the fact that he was nearly executed, to which Jose says he thought that their group wouldn't be strong again. Jose then asks Licht how he survived and why he is in a place like this. Licht calmly tells him that he was revived by his own skill and drops the bombshell that he also resurrected the Demon Lord army. Hearing this, Jose's soul leaves his body for a moment. Then he says that Licht has committed a serious sin that will be remembered forever in human history. However, Licht calmly says that he doesn't care, to which Jose threatens him that if the king finds out, he will come at Licht with his full force and finish him. However, our bold bug says that he is ready and tells Jose to fight him. Jose nods and thinks that he can escape with a teleport item if needed and decides he must return to the kingdom and tell them that Licht joined the Demon Lord. Just then, Dorothy sends spirits to attack Jose, but he decides not to fight and uses a teleport orb to vanish. Licht watches this and realizes that now his truth will be revealed. Meanwhile, Jose tries to leave the dungeon but finds a barrier in his way. He walks around and sees that there is not a single undead around, but he feels that this dungeon is much scarier than others. Just then, Faris appears and greets him, and Jose is surprised to see her. He sees that she looks harmless and unarmed and decides to strike first. Then he suddenly appears behind her to land quick hits and Faris gets wounded and collapses. Seeing this, he thinks that the threat is over, but then wounds appear on Jose's body too, and he falls before he can even react. Later, in the Rasaga kingdom, a servant tells the king that all contact with the adventurers has been lost, which means something terrible happened to them. Hearing this, the king says he had a bad feeling, but didn't expect such a terrible result. The servant tells the king that there are a large number of monsters inside that dungeon, and the king asks if they are enemies or not. He adds that there will be a serious battle if these monsters are their enemies, to which the servant suggests that they should share this information with the neighboring nations like elves and dragons. The king is surprised by such a plan, but the servant explains that this threat affects every nation, so it's best to form an alliance with them before it's too late. The king orders them to begin the preparations immediately and says that the monsters could see their research group as a declaration of war, and it wouldn't be a surprise if they retaliated tomorrow. Meanwhile, Aria sighs and says that this is not good, to which Licht asks what's troubling her. Aria says that they've been eating the same food for days and their diet is too poor, to which Licht says it's inevitable since they didn't go out. He thinks their diet is healthy, but it might be good to change the menu from time to time. Arya tells him that they don't have anyone who can cook except Tis and Iris. Cooking is so bad that even dogs refuse to eat it. Licht asks Arya about her cooking, and she says she's unsure about her cooking and has a lot of other things to do. Licht doubts he can help since he can't cook either, but Arya says she has an idea to solve the cooking problem. Hearing this, Licht asks if she's going to ask him to resurrect a chef, but Arya tells him that she hadn't thought of that. Then she explains that they'll join forces with the non-human races, and after that, they will recruit some of their chefs and also secure new food sources. Hearing this, Licht asks if she means bartering, and Arya confirms they have treasure and weapons that they can offer to trade. Licht then asks which races she plans to unite with, to which Arya tells him that elves and draconians are the most similar to them. She explains that they will recruit draconians to refine weapons and the elves to cook their food. Arya decides to deal with elves, and Licht goes to Iris and Tis and tells them about Arya's plan to recruit a new cook from the elven race. He tells them that he plans to head to the elf kingdom first and asks for their help. Licht thinks that since he'll be dealing with elves, he can only ask these two for help because they are high elves and they have superiority over the others. He knows that even if elves don't want to cooperate, it will be easier to establish contact with the help of Iris and Tis. Licht points out that their canteen will be full of fancy food if they manage to get a cook. Hearing this, Tis says that sounds wonderful and everyone in Dystopia will dance with joy. Just then, delusional Iris suggests they should have asked her to cook and says that Arya is a foodie. Tis comments that her little sister's cooking is delicious and Iris is pleased to hear that. Then she asks Licht if they only need to escort him to the elf kingdom, and Licht nods. Both of them are excited to help, and the next moment they summon something that almost causes a syntax error in Licht's whole system. Tis tells him that it's their pet, and Iris explains that it's a legendary beast called Fenrir, and they call him Fen. Seeing this, Licht thinks that the mere presence of such a beast might be enough to subdue the elf kingdom. Tis says it's well trained and not to be feared, but Licht is scared because he has heard in the tales that a Fenrir who has tasted human meat can be dangerous. Tis assures him that there's nothing to worry about, and if something happens, he can revive himself, and this scares Licht even more. Tishu once again assures him that he will be defeated so quickly that he will not feel any pain. Our boy keeps his cool and says that's not the problem, to which Iris tells him that Tis was just teasing him. Licht hops on it, and Tis points out that despite his panic, nothing terrible happens. Tis then warns Licht that Fen becomes very angry when he is hungry and tells him to be careful. Licht says that it should have been mentioned earlier for his peace of mind and asks not to forget to feed the beast. As they approach the elf kingdom, Iris says it's nice in Dystopia, but sometimes it's good to get out into the outside world. After that, they leave Fen and start walking, and Iris says she wanted to bring Fenya, but Tis tells her that they have to leave him nearby. She adds that all the elves will be terrified if they take him with them. Licht realizes that elves can mistake Fen for an intruder due to his frightening appearance. Tis says that they must make a good impression if they want to barter with them. Suddenly, they hear a noise and Tis asks if Licht hears it too, to which he starts looking around but doesn't notice any danger. Iris says she hears someone calling for help and reveals that the opponent is a giant spider. Licht assumes that someone is being attacked, and it can be elves who got attacked in the middle of the forest. Tishu agrees with him and says that they have accidentally stumbled upon the spider, and once spiders notice prey, it becomes impossible to escape. Iris points out that they don't have much time and urges them to hurry. Tis asks her to follow and quickly begins to lead the way, which surprises Licht. He asks if the three of them can handle the giant spider, and Tis assures him that they can easily deal with the monster if they stop it from moving. After hearing this, Licht decides to leave it to the sisters, who know more about such battles. They run to the spot and see a giant spider that has already caught an elf. Tis realizes that they failed to come to her aid in time because she is lying motionless on the ground. Iris says they arrived just a little late because the giant spider is about to devour the small elf girl. Seeing this, the sisters decide to stop the monster with their magic and use their fairy control skill. Many fairies appear and begin attacking the spider and slide inside its body. After a few moments, the spider becomes immobilized, and Tis asks Licht to resurrect the elf girl. Licht immediately starts the resurrection and tries to do it quickly before the spider can move again. The elf girl opens her eyes and can't believe she's alive and gets more shocked when she sees that the spider is dead. Tis reassures the girl that the danger is gone and the monster won't harm her anymore. The girl is overjoyed and asks if Tis brought her back to life, but Tis says it was Licht who did it, while she and her sister defeated the spider. Hearing this, the girl kneels down and thanks Licht. After that, Iris suggests to Tis that the elf girl could guide them, and the girl asks where they want to go. Licht says they need to reach the elf kingdom, but aren't sure of the way, so they'd be glad for her help. The girl agrees to guide them and introduces herself as Lyrica, and the group also introduces themselves. Lyrica is surprised to find out that she just met two high elves, and it's her first time seeing high elves in person. Iris and Tis don't understand why Lyrica keeps staring at them with such awe. Lyrica leads them to the elf kingdom, and the locals are busy and don't really pay attention to the guests. Iris admires the beauty of the place, and others also agree with her. Tis says she wants to visit more places like this when she's off work, and for now, she doesn't even want to move from the spot. Everyone is tired from the journey and wants to rest. Suddenly, Lyrica calls out Licht's name and runs toward them, to which he asks what's going on. Lyrica excitedly says she told the elf princess about them, and that the princess wants to meet them. All three are surprised because they didn't expect the princess to invite them so quickly. Iris tells her sister that things are going better than expected. Lyrica points to a large tree and says the princess is waiting for them in the treehouse. They all follow Lyrica to meet the princess, and as they approach the treehouse, they admire how beautiful it is. Iris says she wants such a big house in Dystopia, to which Tis jokes that she should ask Rosé for one. However, Licht instantly puts the brakes on their daydreaming and thinks that adding more tasks to Rosé might stress her out. Tis tells her sister to stop joking and reminds her to behave properly in front of the princess. Licht then asks who is more respectable, Tis or the elf princess. Iris says her sister is definitely more respectable, but when he asks again, Iris finally says that it's the princess. Licht then asks what they are bartering, to which Iris says that they will borrow some of the skilled individuals of this kingdom in exchange for jewelry and weapons they have. Tis praises Iris and tells Lyrica that they're ready to meet the princess and apologizes for the wait. The elf opens the doors to the hall for them. Iris wonders what will happen if the princess dislikes them, to which Tis says that the demon lord will be upset. Licht thinks that it could lead to big losses if this plan fails, but he hopes the meeting goes well. They walk into the hall and the elf princess welcomes them and introduces herself as Arsh. The group also introduces themselves and Licht thanks the princess for her hospitality. Arsh says she already knows what happened and thanks them for saving Lyrica from the spider. She apologizes for being late and says she's not sure how to repay them. The princess explains that the giant spider had troubled them for a long time and they had tried everything but couldn't defeat it. She's amazed that someone else managed to beat it. Licht is surprised when the princess walks right up to him, but she warmly thanks him and says she knows that they came to talk about something important. Iris says they want to borrow the talented people of the Elf Kingdom in exchange for their weapons and treasure. Licht and Tis are shocked by how direct Iris is. However, Arsh laughs and says they are extremely pleased with the offer of jewelry and her people would love it. Licht didn't expect her to agree so fast and thinks something might be off, but then the princess says she was only joking. Arsh explains that many young elves want to see the world outside the forest, and she's open to the idea of working with the demon lord. Licht asks if it's true, to which Tis tells him not to make it one-sided and Licht agrees. The princess then says in exchange for her people, she needs their help to destroy her enemies like they did with the spider because elves don't like to fight. Iris says they can handle that and looks to her sister for support and Tis agrees. Licht thinks about how the demon lord must already be getting excited to fight. Arsh says she's ready to send some of her people with them and asks them to send their regards to the demon lord. The group is happy the meeting went well and they say goodbye to Princess Arsh. Lyrica guides them to the forest's edge and they say goodbye to her too. Licht says Arsh is really kind and that Arya should learn manners from her. Iris tells him not to talk about their lord like that and Tis agrees, saying Arya has good sides too. Iris then realizes they didn't tell her anything about Arya, but Licht says it's not a big deal. Our big brain guy thinks that now that they've made a deal with the elves, their next step is the Dragonkin. After several days of travel through the mountains, they arrive in Dragonkin territory. Rose says it feels good to be outdoors, and Licht tells her she should take breaks more often to feel like this. According to the plan, he's supposed to go to the Dragonkin settlement alone, but Rose offers to go with him. Licht says he never thought he'd fly in the sky, to which Rose laughs and says flying is fun. Licht asks if she's okay with sunlight since she's a vampire and Rose says the sun doesn't affect her anymore. She then asks what they'll do once they're in the village and how they will react if the Dragonkin attack. Licht says that they can't retaliate against them, even if they get attacked by them. He says that they have to become allies with them because they want Dragonkin to manufacture armor and weapons for them. He says Arya has told him that Dystopia doesn't have the full ability to make new gear. He reveals that if they get along with the Dragonkin, they can ask them to make weapons for them, even if they don't come with them to Dystopia. He says that he asked Arya to let him borrow her favorite weapon. Just then, Rose tells Licht they're getting close and asks him to stay near. She grabs him tightly, almost giving the vibes of a honeymoon couple gliding, and helps him land safely. After that, her wings vanish, and she tells him they've arrived. Meanwhile, a brother and sister are fishing by the lake when the girl pauses and her brother asks if something is wrong. Lalka says she feels uneasy and wants to head home. Her brother is surprised but agrees with her because their mother is still unwell. Laylak then asks him if their mother will really get better, to which he says they should stay strong. Lalka shows concern that their mom hasn't been eating, and they might call a healer to cure her. Hearing this, her brother says healing magic can help wounds, but he's never heard of magic that cures sickness. Lalka agrees and suggests they should head home and hopes that their mom might have gotten better. After that, the two head back home and walk through the empty and quiet streets of the Dragonkin settlement. Meanwhile, Licht and Rose are walking around and Licht says that calling the Dragonkin place a village is more accurate than calling it a kingdom since they seem to live in much smaller numbers than humans. Rose then asks if they should just attack, but Licht instantly says it's better to try talking first and suggests they should look for a local. Licht thinks it's more convenient to talk to just one Dragonkin because if they run into two, they might get attacked. Just then, Rose spots two of the locals who are pretty young and Licht sees that they don't have weapons and no one else is nearby, so he thinks this is a good chance. He calls out to them with a greeting, which makes the young boy, Kane, turn around. He tells his sister, Lalka, about the humans, which makes her quickly stand in front of him as she tells him to stay on guard. She says that Licht is human, but the woman beside him is something else, and she can feel a strange aura around her. Kane then asks why they are here and says that this isn't a place for humans. However, our chill-coded guy says they aren't enemies and that he wants to trade with the village, to which Kane asks if he's a merchant. Then he says humans have nothing useful for dragon folk and tells them if they leave right now, he'll act like he didn't see them. Licht tells him not to be so quick to judge and shows them a rare and high-quality sword that surprises both of them, and Kane asks what kind of sword it is. Kane then says that if they have something so special, it means they can also help to cure their sick mother. He then explains that they are looking for a medicine to cure their mother and asks Licht to give it to him if he has any. Hearing this, Licht asks Rose if she brought any medicine with her, but Rose tells him that all she has is garlic. Licht doesn't get why a vampire like her would have garlic and asks the siblings to explain more about their mother's illness. Kane says their mom is very sick and they need medicine. Licht says he can help without medicine, to which Kane asks how that's possible, and Licht explains that he has a special healing skill that doesn't need potions. He says if Kane takes him to their mother, he can help, but Kane is surprised and says that Licht has to prove it first. This breaks the castle of Licht's hopes, but he gets an idea and says he'll bring a fish back to life. He uses his healing skill, and suddenly the fish in the basket starts moving again. Seeing this, Lalka and Kane are amazed, and they start to trust Licht and see that he doesn't mean any harm. After that, they head home and see that there are other villagers sitting in their house. The dragonkin see Licht and Rose and ask Kane about them. Lalka explains to them that Licht can heal their mother, to which the villagers ask if she is sure, and Lalka says she can guarantee that they are special. Then one of the guys gets up and asks Licht if he can really cure her, to which Licht asks if he can check the sick woman's condition first. He approaches the sick dragon lady lying in bed. Rose asks if he will resurrect her to heal her, to which he whispers that there is an issue and explains that she would have to be dead first if they want to resurrect her. Licht knows that everyone is watching, so it's impossible to put her down. Licht is sure that they will attack him right away if he does anything weird. Then he wonders if he can use resurrection as a form of healing to gain their trust. Rose tells him to leave it to her and steps toward the sick woman. Suddenly, Rose bites the sick woman's neck and Kane instantly asks what she is doing. Licht quickly assures them that Rose is just checking the pulse, and on the basis of that, he'll decide which healing magic to use. Kane believes him and apologizes for interfering. After that, Rose informs Licht that she's done, and Licht realizes that now he needs to resurrect her so no one suspects anything. He uses his resurrection magic, and the woman starts to regain consciousness after a while. Lalka and Kane can't believe that Licht was really able to heal her. The mother gets up and asks them why her pain is gone, and seeing this, Lalka and Kane rush towards her. They point towards Licht and tell her that he healed her, to which their mother thanks Licht and asks his name. Licht introduces himself and says Rose is with him. The woman thanks them again for saving her and says she doesn't know how to repay them, but promises to repay them double because dragon people always thank their benefactors. Then she asks if she can do anything for them, to which Licht thinks this is his chance and tells her that he is looking for weapons and equipment and he needs them to help him with their skills. Hearing this, one of the guys asks if that will be enough because manufacturing a weapon is easy peasy for them. However, Kane knows that it's not that easy and asks Licht to show them his weapon. Licht then shows him the sword, and when he sees, he didn't expect it to be like that. Licht calmly tells him that they'll provide materials and in return, the dragonkin will make weapons for them. Hearing this, they get excited, and Kane says that they'll definitely repay them for their help. Licht has successfully built a strong and trusting alliance with both the dragonkin and the elves. With this pact, Dystopia can now engage in a much wider range of activities through these two races in the future. Additionally, they should be able to gather an army if a crisis arises. The humans, on the other hand, are also aiming for the same goal. Scene shift to a quiet evening in Dystopia, and the entrance to the dungeon is exposed to the sea's waves. Licht and Rose have come back and everyone is sleeping peacefully. The next morning, Licht reports about his visits and Dorothy is happy to hear they're now allies with the elves and dragonkin. Licht reports that the dragonkin are very grateful, but Dorothy doesn't believe they've established a good relationship with them. Hearing this, Licht mentions that he was lucky because he was able to help one of the dragonkin's people. Dorothy says Arya has been very involved in the outside world lately and asks if she wants to take over the world. Licht says that he doesn't know much about it, but he can say that she has learned from past experiences. Hearing this, Dorothy says she has heard that something happened 100 years ago, but Licht tells her that they have a ban on such questions. He tells her that he asked Arya about it, but she got mad and isolated herself inside her room. Licht is sure that something really happened in the past, and Dorothy says that might be the reason Arya is strengthening her military power. She points out that their military power is still weak, and they can't defeat the humans due to their sheer number. Licht tells her he heard that the king is keeping a trump card up his sleeve. Hearing this, Dorothy guesses it could be a weapon or a fierce monster, but Licht says he doesn't know what it is, but he has already warned Arya, and she will come up with some countermeasure. Suddenly, Rose runs past them and tells them that Arya has called a meeting, and they have to come with her. Rose says this meeting is very important because the Eastern Demon Lord started a fight against them. Hearing this, Licht and Dorothy decide to end their conversation and join the meeting. Licht walks into the meeting hall and asks Arya about the issue, while Iris asks Tis why the Lord is silent, but Tis tells her to be quiet. Arya starts speaking and tells them that she thought the demons should help each other against their worst enemies, the humans. She says she asked the Eastern Lord for help, but he refused and attacked them with magic. Hearing this, Rose realizes what the attack was and tells him that there was an explosion at the entrance last night. Arya assures them that it didn't do much damage, but they had no choice but to respond, and asks them if they are ready to fight. Hearing this, Licht tells her not to get too excited because they have too little military power and they should wait more before declaring war. However, Arya points out that they already threw explosive magic at their territory. Licht realizes that it's too late to stop it now, and thinks that they have to get on with this fight against the Eastern Demon Lord in addition to the human land. Dorothy is also worried about the whole situation. Licht remembers that he heard about this Demon Lord when he lived with humans and says that there were rumors that no one survived a battle against him. Licht recalls that people feared Garga so much that even the guild warned about his power, that Garga could send destructive magic from far away. Then he asks if Arya knows about this, and Arya replies she didn't know but says power passes from father to son, and she doesn't know what happened after she died. She tells him that she didn't have any children to succeed her, but she still remembers where the demon's castle is. Licht realizes they now know where they need to attack. Iris asks if they are really going to fight and says she doesn't want to lose. Tis reassures her and says that they will win because they have Licht. Hearing this, Arya says Licht is the most important figure on their battlefield, and he will have to work properly. She tells him that he just needs to resurrect others if they die, especially Faris. Licht agrees to her instructions and promises to do his best. Faris calls him her partner and says that she will rely on him, to which Licht agrees to do whatever it takes to win this battle. After the meeting, Dorothy asks Licht what their plan is because they don't know when the enemy might attack again. Licht thinks that they don't know when the Eastern Demon Lord will attack again, so Licht wants to strike tomorrow to gain the upper hand. Licht knows that the Demon Lord controls only the East, but he's still powerful and likely has many strategies. Licht recalls that the demon has only a few high-ranking demons, which means they might not have to fight many. He wonders if they have enough strong commanders to match them. Rose suggests that she can lead a self-sacrificing attack, but Licht tells her not to go that far. Faris tells them to leave it to her, but Licht once again rejects the brainless self-sacrificing attack idea. Dorothy reminds them there are only 7 of them, so if they are willing to spread dystopia thin, then they can use her spirits. Licht likes the idea because he knows that it would be hard for them to ignore hundreds of spirits coming at them. Iris asks her older sister what they should do, and Tis tells her that they'll need to escort the dead souls along with the spirits of the forest. Rose hears their discussion and asks what she should do, to which Faris points out that there's nothing left for Rose but a self-sacrificing attack. Licht assures her he'll think of something. Iris feels sorry for Rose and suggests that Rose can distract the enemy with her beauty. Rose calms down and tells her comrades she'll try to help. Just then, Faris points out that Rose can turn into a bat, to which Rose replies that it's hardly useful. However, Licht asks if she can turn into a bat now, and Rose immediately transforms into a bat. Seeing this, Licht informs her that she'll have a role in this case. Faris says that Rose used to play catch with her, and she couldn't catch her as a bat. Rose is happy to know she can be useful in the upcoming battle, and she is eager to hear her role. Licht tells her to play her part as a spy, to which Rose asks if he wants her to sneak into the enemy Demon Lord's territory and start a surprise duel with him, and it would buy them time. Hearing this, Licht panics and says they don't need to go that far, but Rose insists on trying. Scene shifts to Garga's castle, which is enveloped in an ominous aura. Near the castle, Licht and Faris encounter monsters, and they try to escape, but the monster attempts to strike a powerful blow. Licht and Faris dodge the blow while Iris's fairy slides inside the monster and immobilizes it. Licht realizes that demon territory is worth messing with and says there have never been so many monsters in human territory. He is relieved that they brought Iris's fairies, which saved their lives. Demon territory covers 70% of the land, and Licht is now on the eastern part of the territory. Soon they reach the castle, and Licht says he has only heard rumors about this place and never thought that the castle would be this huge. He recalls that many adventurers tried to explore this place, but none of them returned alive. Licht feels that his body is shivering due to the ominous aura of the castle. Then he says Dorothy and her spirits must have already drawn the enemy's attention away from them so they can use this chance to enter the castle. Faris agrees with him and steps forward, but a sudden gunshot pierces through her body and leaves her dead. Seeing this, Licht's soul leaves the planet and turns to Faris and casting resurrection magic. He thinks that someone hit her with such precision from such a great distance and realizes the enemy's skills are far better than they thought. However, he notes that the attack has stopped, which means the enemy is also dead because Faris's skill detects the weapon of the owner who finishes her and then uses the weapon in the same way to end her enemy's life. After finishing the resurrection, Faris asks if Licht is hurt, to which he replies that she covered for him. Faris tells him not to worry and advises him to be careful of such attacks. They move ahead, and Licht notices that the enemy has stopped attacking and realizes this is a great chance to strike back. Licht thinks that the enemy forces them to use their power too soon, but doesn't mind even if they come to know about Faris's power. Licht asks Faris to stay by his side from now on because he wants her to use her hidden skill against the Eastern Demon Lord, but only at the right moment. Faris agrees and he warns her to be careful because unknown enemies might be waiting. Inside the castle, a man named Dover screams and asks what's happening, to which his assistant reports that the girl they found was already injured when she arrived. Hearing this, Dover wonders if the enemy has already infiltrated the castle. He says that dead girl Luluka's accuracy is top tier among the Demon Lord army, but the one who shot her was way more skilled. His assistant then asks what will happen to Luluka, and Dover says to leave her as she is for now and deal with it later. The assistant says that Luluka was taken out in a strange way. Hearing this, Dover notes that there are no signs of a fight in the room, which is odd. He thinks that no matter how strong the enemies are, there's no way someone could die without even fighting back, especially not Luluka, who's one of the top commanders in the Demon Lord's army. Dover guesses that she died in the same way as her enemy did, to which his assistant asks if the enemy has someone with the same powers as Luluka. Suddenly, they hear a noise. Dover thinks it's the enemy and tells the girl to report Luca's condition to other top brass and the Demon Lord. He says he will meet up with everyone right away, and the girl quickly follows the orders and wishes Dover luck. Dover grips his sword and thinks that his sword of resentment grows stronger as it absorbs his wielder's hatred. Meanwhile, Licht and Faris observe everything to make sure the invasion is going well, and Licht notes that Dorothy's spirits have covered the entire castle. Just then, Dover sees Licht and Faris and calls them brave for invading their land. Licht tells Faris to stay behind him, and she does. Then Dover introduces himself and asks if the spirits will vanish once Licht is gone. Licht tells him to try, which makes one of Dover's underlings angry, and he tells Licht to behave. Dover draws his sword and swings at Licht, but he stops the blade midway, giving Dover a low-voltage shock. Seeing this, Dover says Licht knows well about swords because he didn't swing it recklessly. He mentions that Licht will meet his end soon because his sword skills are not up to par. Then he lands a strong blow, and Licht struggles to defend because he's protecting Faris. Seeing this, Faris tells Licht to let her use her power, but Licht says she should save her ability for the Demon Lord and shouldn't focus on defeating the weaker enemies. Hearing this, Dover warns Licht not to underestimate them, and one of the enemies rushes toward Faris, who is standing behind Licht. Faris follows the plan and hides her powers while the enemy gets close and says that this will finish her. Then an archer fires an arrow at her and Faris falls to the ground without making a sound. The boy mocks her and goes to help Dover, who is still fighting Licht. Just then the boy falls and dies the same way as Iris. Dover doesn't understand at first, then he realizes that the boy's body is hurt the same way as Faris's. He figures out Faris used a skill to reflect damage, and he finally understands how Luluka was taken down by her own attack. While Licht keeps fighting Dover, suddenly Dover's body trembles, and he drops his sword. He is unable to move and blood tears fall from his eyes, and he sees that the archer is dead too. Licht instantly comes to Faris and uses his resurrection spell and quickly revives her. She opens her eyes and apologizes, saying she couldn't protect Licht and it was a bad idea to fight alone against 3 enemies. Dover is still conscious and realizes he was poisoned by something with no cure. Hearing this, Licht says he won't tell him because Dover would report to his lord. Dover says it's useless now, and Licht realizes the fairies Iris used were the ones who poisoned him, but they showed up later than expected. Licht then says they should hurry and meet Rose. Meanwhile, the assistant reports to Demon Lord Garga that Dover is no more. However, the Demon Lord says he already knows what happened and comments that things are getting interesting. Do you think Licht and Faris will be able to reach the Demon Lord and slay him using Faris's skill? Is it possible that Garga will form an alliance with the humans and fight together against Aria? What role do you think the Dragonkin and elves will play in this situation? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. And if you're enjoying this story, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe for more videos like this. See you in the next one.